I wanted to begin really importantly with our name. So our name was gifted from some amazing academics at Te Kuninga ki Pūrehuroa, Massey University, Dr. Darren Josephs, as well as Hone Morris. They gifted us the name of Puhoro. And to commence, I think it's important to contextualize for us what that means. So you see denoted in my first slide that motif that exists on the side of waka or vessels. And really, those motifs were used in ways to denote forward propulsion, to denote agility, speed, to denote as well that carving through the waves forward. And so very much in terms of how we contextualize what we do in Puhoro, we look towards that horizon, te pai tawhiti, and we recognize that in order to get there, we will need that momentum forward. And that momentum forward will be through, from our perspective, and one of the ways in which it will help guide us to that horizon is through STEM pathways. And when I say STEM pathways, I mean science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and mātauranga. So in 2021, our board at that time coined the term STEM with an additional M in terms of what that meant for us. And so really, as the Puhoro STEM Academy, this is some of the understandings of our name forward and that connection, of course, to Puhoro. It also has another layer of meaning for us in the program. So ko te pū, when we break down the word, ko te pū, the pū is really a source. And the horo is that energy that is derived from that source or that energy transfer. And when we think about that for us, that source is really mātauranga Māori, and we are able to feed from that well, and that really that energy transfer then gives us that momentum forward towards that horizon into the future through STEM. So I wanted to firstly, I think, and importantly, help all of us understand the gift of our name when it was given to us from Massey University, and furthermore forward what those layer of meanings in the name mean for each of us in the program. We are in such a critical time, and all of us are acting in different ways to further engage with our rangatahi, to further engage with our communities of practice, and furthermore to support their learning. So why we exist in 2015, we went out to different communities. We went out to universities, we went out to rangatahi, we went out to their whānau. We went out to understand, importantly, how we could change the fact that at industry level, when we look at the end of that spectrum, we're represented in STEM at about 2 to 3%, and tech it's about 4.8%. So it was really important for us in 2015 to understand how could we create a solution that could help build up that pipeline of rangatahi Māori entering into STEM, and furthermore, how could we shift the dial at the end of that journey in terms of industry representation in STEM. So after that that recon in 2015, in 2016, the idea came forward to build and create the Puhoro STEM Academy. So really from that understanding, that year-long kind of recon of understanding how we could affect some of that change, we understand that we're one of the answers, we're not all of the answers. In terms of how we engage rangatahi Māori into STEM, we realised that it was critical that we start in a way that we can commence with them in year 11, downstream, and then importantly, we can work with them particularly across those transition points of level 1, level 2, and level 3 in NCA, and then furthermore continue to work alongside them as they matriculate into tertiary education, and then purposefully find ways that we can integrate them into industry. We can give them experience in STEM industry to further reveal understanding to our rangatahi around what that really looks like to be a STEM practitioner in industry. So We operate in Pūhoro across what we call different phases. So Te Urunga 2, which is our high school phase, Te Urunga Pai, which is our tertiary vocational pathway phase, and then Te Urunga Tapu, which is really a nod to the fact that we're connecting with industry, we're supporting our rangatahi into industry, and we do that importantly through an internship program that we have. So we recognised that in order to be able to affect that change, we needed to create a comprehensive pipeline that system enabled our rangatahi in the education system currently, that helped them across those critical transition points, and then furthermore we could affect that change as they continue to work through tertiary and create opportunities for them out into industry. What we understand very clearly as to why we exist, we are a structurally youthful population. We're very clear on the fact, as per the 2023 census, that 1 in 5 New Zealanders are Māori, but more importantly than that statistic, we know that almost 1 in 3 New Zealanders under 25 are Māori. So importantly, the 15, 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds and so on that we work with, by the time we get to 2040, will very much be the future workforce that is required in STEM. We know, as well as we project forward into that future, that there will be at least 1.2 million of Māori descent in this country. We know that 1 in 3 of our babies that will be born in Aotearoa, New Zealand, will be of Māori descent. And furthermore, we know that we will make up at least 20% of the labour force. And what is very clear to us is that, importantly, we need to work now. We need to work intentionally to ensure that there is space for our rangatahi in those upper echelons of STEM industry, and furthermore, that we're able to work alongside them, walk alongside them and their whānau as key motivators of success into the future that is ahead. So that is why we are here. That is why we do what we do. We understand very clearly the demographics, we understand very clearly what is coming, and we know that our model is such that it is very well positioned to support, to help our rangatahi succeed, and furthermore disrupt for themselves some of the narratives that perhaps have been ingrained in terms of their ability, capability, and capacity to engage in STEM. So as a disruptor, in terms of a community of practice, we remind our rangatahi that they descend from supreme engineers, biochemists. Of course, we all understand that their ancestors were amazing navigators and astronomers. We understand further that they're amazing healers, conservationists, and so it's critical for us to clearly disrupt for our rangatahi anything in their mind that says that STEM isn't part of who they are, nor who they were in terms of their own whakapapa. So once we're able to clear that up and clarify that for them, they're able to see clearly that who they are as Māori is very much connected to STEM in terms of who their tupuna were and how they acted in the past. And so that really is our vision, that is our goal and our understanding of how we can further support them forward, and that is why we are here. This is the wonderful staff that we have the opportunity to serve alongside in service of our community. We have 43 staff now in Pūhoro across the country. We are guided, as you will see here, by preeminent rangatira who have engaged in national and international ways in STEM. Importantly on this slide, I think it's important that I share more about our genesis story. We were birthed out of Te Kuninga ki Pūrehuroa, and in 2016, you will note Mana Vortia, our NASA ambassador here. In 2016, in 2016, when we commenced out of Te Kuninga ki Purehuroa, we really wanted to make sure that we were able to begin the program in a way that could really set a stake in the ground in terms of what we wanted to ensure our rangatahi understood, and furthermore, that we can continue forward with strength and mana. So we Googled at that time, are there any Māori working at NASA? We found one. Perhaps he may be still the only one. We hope to change that. And we found Manavortia. Now, Manavortia works in the NASA Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, nor Te Arawa ia. And we reached out to him and invited him to return to New Zealand to open up the Puhoro STEM Academy. As Amy mentioned, we began very humbly with 97 rangatahi initially in a small number of schools. We commenced in a way that Manavortia was able to, of course, launch our program, and he was able to do so alongside one of his colleagues, Colonel Rick Searforce, who is a fair dinkum astronaut and who has commandeered 3 successful space missions. So alongside Manavortia was Colonel Rick Searforce, a NASA astronaut. Alongside them both were, of course, the mana whenua of this region, Rangitane. And then we had 97 rangatahi, their whānau, and I believe at that point in time, there were about 3 Puhoro staff. So we commenced in a way that was very clear in terms of how we intended to continue forward. And that was to clearly and emphatically ensure that in the minds of our students, they understood as they looked towards a living example of STEM success in mana, that not even the sky is the limit in terms of their potential, in terms of their capability in STEM. And so we began in those humble beginnings in 2016 out of Te Kuninga ki Purehuroa Massey University. So we have good whakapapa there. As we transition forward into our development and progress, I note here in 2021, we became a charitable trust, so we moved forward from Massey University, very much continuing with the links and hono and experience that we had gained under their umbrella. We became in 2021 the Puhoro Charitable Trust, and at that time we were serving around 1,000 rangatahi. As we now shift forward, in remembering where we began with 97 rangatahi, we now serve over 3,500 rangatahi. We're currently in our first phase of the program. We're now in 97 schools, so over 95 schools. We have rangatahi now who have gone through the program, who are in all the universities and wānanga and most Te Pūkenga sites. One of the things I always giggle a little bit about is that we didn't have anyone at Lincoln University. We believe it's the temperature down there. It might be too cold for our rangatahi, but that has now changed. We have a couple of rangatahi there. And now, because we are entering forward on January the 28th next year, we would have been running for 10 years as a kaupapa. We are now seeing our rangatahi emerge. We have a few that have progressed forward into postgraduate study. And similarly, we have rangatahi now out in STEM industry. So as you can imagine, it's been a breathtaking journey to be able to work alongside our rangatahi, their whānau longitudinally. We are not a day event. We see the value, of course, in opportunities that may happen over the course of a day, but in terms of how we may affect change in what I shared, our representation being in STEM industry at the end of that journey, we know there's much work to do. And so our program is intensive. It is particular, and over the years, as we've continued to learn, to iterate, to innovate, and to grow, these lessons have held us in good stead as we continue to build up the success and mana of our rangatahi through the different STEM pathways we are able to afford them. What does that look like in terms of the day-to-day? So it's important that I share that we are not a before school program, a lunchtime program, or an after school program. Our rangatahi Māori have many additional responsibilities, whānau commitments, as well as extracurricular aspects that they need to fulfill, as well as at times, depending on the circumstances of their whānau, and our whānau are very diverse, they may also be required within employment, part-time employment, to be able to serve their whānau economically. And so our program is perioded within the timetable, so we are particular in our partnerships with each of our schools that we work alongside to reduce all barriers of access, that we ensure that this is part of their schooling day. And in terms of what we deliver, we have a kind of mixed mode around supporting them in their NCEA STEM subjects, in mathematics, and we tutor them accordingly. And furthermore, we also run what I call 21st century skills with a Māori twist, so mentoring. But I think it's important to understand when you work with the volume of rangatahi and the diverse realities that they live within, what's become very clear and has always been fundamental, as I shared at the very beginning of my presentation around mātauranga Māori, is in terms of the ways in which our rangatahi are able to express within the Māori world. Some are at the very beginning of their journey, some are in those formative kind of burgeoning stages of that journey, and we know as well, as we've engaged with more kura a iwi, that some are very pronounced in that journey ahead. But understandably, the majority of our rangatahi are finding through Pūhoro an additional cultural anchor to help them explore, understand, and be grounded in who they are as Māori. What we're very clear about in Pūhoro is that we want to ensure that our rangatahi are able to understand what it means to feed from their mātauranga, to draw from that well. But similarly, we believe that as rangatahi, as the future, they also have the ability to feed back into that pool of mātauranga as it is in flux. And so we have a mission to ensure that we do not want to just churn out more scientists that happen to be Māori. Instead, we want to ensure that our rangatahi are able to draw from those skills, those technical skills that are required in STEM from Western science, which of course has its roots in Eastern science, but we won't need to talk about that. And then furthermore, be able to draw from their own mātauranga as well, so that they can clearly be grounded in terms of bringing the uniqueness of their Māori worldview forward into those STEM industries. And so these are some of the activities that occur over the course of the calendar year. Within high schools, we have a different approach in terms of our second phase and third phase of the program in tertiary and industry, in terms of how we engage with our rangatahi at those different levels, which is different, of course, to our high school engagement. But importantly, the thread across all of those phases is the way in which we are culturally anchoring our rangatahi and ensuring that they can draw from both of those spheres of mātauranga. To give you a bit more understanding of how perhaps in a rounded way, we're embedding some of that mātauranga. Across the last 12 months, we've held 36 different events. Usually, if we're able to be accommodated, we host a number of those, what we call wānanga in tertiary sites. Still, a number of our rangatahi will be first in family should they decide to go on to tertiary. So again, the reason why we are hosting our wānanga on tertiary sites, on te Pūkenga sites, is so that we can further normalise what it means to interact and engage within those environments, so that our rangatahi, who of course will be first in family, can see and can have some of perhaps those preconceived notions of what that could look like dispelled. And similarly, we engage with a number of our external partners in STEM who support us in the delivery of different STEM workshops. And those STEM workshops are very much engaging. They help inform our rangatahi around the different principles in STEM. They offer career exposure around what that looks like in terms of working within those industries. They help extend the line of sight of our rangatahi into understanding what those STEM roles and careers actually look like. And furthermore, they increase the network of our rangatahi into knowing and connecting with champions who very much wish to see them transition forward into those STEM pathways. I've mentioned, of course, the high school phase of our program, which is quite pronounced. The other one I wanted to speak about here was over the last 6 summers, we have created, iterated, and very much consolidated our Pūhoro Summer Internship Program. So since our 6th summer, last summer, we've completed over 260 summer internships where we have placed Pūhoro rangatahi who are in the Pūhoro program, with a variety of STEM organisations, whether they be corporate, whether they be research projects or institutes, whether they be with CRIs, which we know are now PROs, and furthermore, whether they be with organisations who have different STEM capabilities. So this has been quite an interesting and exciting kaupapa for us, because our premise is really to ensure that as soon as our rangatahi matriculate from year 13 to their first year in tertiary, that they are offered an opportunity to do an internship in that first year of their tertiary study. And why? Because we want to ensure, because we know that one of the ways in which you can positively gain employment is through networks. We know that there are many other families who are non-Māori, who have extensive networks already, whose parents and perhaps intergenerationally have already engaged in STEM or STEM industry, so already understand very clearly what that can look like. So for us, from year 1, we ensure that our rangatahi are offered summer internships from year 2 to year 3, 4, and so on, depending on the program. And what that really does is it opens them up to the opportunity to be re-invited for another year in a specific internship. It extends their network. It enables them to bring into these spaces, which are predominantly not peopled by those of Māori descent, their own uniqueness of Māori of their Māori worldview. But importantly, it also, at the same time, builds that etiquette around working and employment within the STEM sector. So we are now, on Monday, we commence our new summer and our new intake of summer internships. We will have 55. So of course, we will hit over the 300 successful summer internships placed. And we very much look forward to how we can further grow that kaupapa. We have much learning that has come through it. When you work with a diversity of industry partners at different levels in terms of their capacity to be able to serve and work alongside our rangatahi. One of the natural extensions of what has come out of the program is the way in which we are also informing some of that best practice for those organisations in terms of how they connect and how they grow and work alongside our rangatahi. We're very clear that we are giving into their care one of our taonga, one of our treasures, and accordingly, those treasures that we are giving over to them may also be on their own journey in terms of their expression in the Māori world. So we continue to play a very strong part in terms of that pastoral guidance element, that brokering between supervisors and organisations to ensure that these are culturally safe spaces for our rangatahi and ensure that we're able to support them through. But furthermore, one of the clear roles of the internship program is that it creates a bridge for the following. It creates a bridge between our rangatahi and STEM industry, but importantly, it also creates a bridge between the STEM community and whānau. And what I mean by that is at the end of our internship program in February, we bring together all our interns, we bring together all their whānau, importantly as well, we bring their supervisors and our partners, and we celebrate through an academic poster session that our rangatahi create on their project or endeavour that has occurred over that internship program, so that their whānau can clearly identify and see and be proud of the accomplishments of the STEM endeavour that has occurred for their rangatahi over that summer, but also connect with the science community at large. These are some of our innovations. Any organisation that has been going over the years as we have, and necessarily we've understood the importance of how we may further innovate to further explore and help embed some of that mātauranga within our rangatahi, but also experience that for other rangatahi in the kaupapa and help ensure that we are further finding ways to evidence the work that we do. Last year we sent a group of rangatahi to Silicon Valley, high school and tertiary students. We were also invited, it's the first time it's occurred, but a multinational called Honeywell invited us to send 5 of our rangatahi to a leadership space camp in Alabama. And what the feedback that came back through in terms of their engagement at this leadership space camp was the way in which our rangatahi were able to contextualise leadership in alignment with values, but similarly in alignment with how those values can be emulated through atua, so through deity. So I think we very much were able to create a platform internationally for our rangatahi, which isn't rocket science perhaps to us, to be able to demonstrate in terms of leadership in full alignment with values, Māori values, and similarly how they can be expressed. And so those opportunities serve 2 functions. They help our rangatahi understand some of those innovations, some of those organisations that are working at STEM at an international level, but furthermore, they continue to help ground our rangatahi in pride in terms of who they are as Māori, that Māori worldview that they're able to take out into the world can be reinforced, because one of the key functions of the Silicon Valley trip was for them to connect with the Ohlone people in the Bay Area. So we find ways that we can help them engage with other Indigenous cultures whilst on those kaupapa too. And probably finally to note here, 2 years ago we established a research arm. And again, that research arm is evidencing the ways in which we are becoming STEM practitioners, and we're continuing to work on building that forward. Another way I just wanted to talk about some of that embedding. So here's just another example, and I'll share with you a video, and then my kōrero would have come to an end. So we partnered with Engineering New Zealand Foundation through what's a kaupapa called the Matata Initiative. And really, this was a desire to how we can further promote with our rangatahi and expose them to the pathway of engineering, but furthermore help them understand what that pathway looks like, further give them that guidance and understanding, and support them in that pathway, particularly when it comes to high school, but also that first year of study in engineering. So one of the ways in which we have embedded mātauranga, and it's something that we've done for a while, but I'm highlighting through this initiative, is in the high school phase, we find ways that we can contextualize STEM in alignment with our pūrākau or our historical narrative, historical kōrero. So I just wanted to show you a bit of a video of our Matata initiative in action with our rangatahi through Wānanga and their creation of different STEM and science and engineering challenges and how we kind of grounded that in mātauranga. I'll then speak about what each of those challenges were in a bit more detail, and then I perhaps might finish there with a little final point. We're here at our Wānanga Pūrau, where students will have the opportunity to work on several new and exciting innovative challenges. This year we've partnered with the Engineering New Zealand Foundation through the Matata Initiative, which was born out of a need to increase the number of professional engineers in the workforce. As part of our partnership with the Engineering New Zealand Foundation through the Matata Initiative, we were tasked with the opportunity to build a suite of 3 reusable pūrākau, science and engineering and technology-based challenges.
We have the fusion of our mātauranga Māori and the stories that are inherent in who we are, that are retold in our whakairo, in our waiata, and that are being relived today and amongst some science, some STEM challenges. Another exciting difference days like today bring are that real hands-on engagement where they bring out that Māoitanga, that sense of curiosity, that excitement, that passion, that hautatu, mischievous side is really drawn into. We found that the hands-on stuff just clicked with our rangatahi. The challenge style where they could compete and earn points.
We're grateful that they've seen the opportunity so that we can use this funding to be able to affect and impact our rangatahi.
Pūhoro's doing wonders. It's definitely opening our minds up to what opportunities we could have and really helping us to carry on in those spaces.
I do want to end on a couple of thoughts, and I'll ensure that that video is sent out so that people can see the remainder. What I wanted to share importantly is there were 3 challenges as part of that video that embedded in them our mātauranga. The first one was called Rona me te marama. So there's a kōrero a pūrākau about Rona. She offends the moon and eventually she ends up on the moon, in brief. And so the workshop really drew inspiration from that pūrākau, and it tasked our rangatahi with the construction of a hydraulic piston arm, a symbol of Marama's reach, to delicately then lift and position a Rona figurine on the highest platform possible, and that mimicked her ascent to the moon. We ensured that it kind of engaged with concepts such as Pascal's law, mechanical linkages, and fluid dynamics, and rangatahi were able to employ syringes, tubing, and water to power their creations. This approach not only deepened their understanding of hydraulic mechanics, but also fostered a profound appreciation for the interconnectedness of pūrākau science as well as STEM. Another one of the challenges that we created was called Ngā Mata o Te Ariki. And really that was our rangatahi embarking on a digital rendition of a pūrākau about Tama's voyage to visit the 9 stars of Matariki. So using Atane's voyage, so using microbit technology to narrate his encounters with the stars through coding and storytelling. The session tasked rangatahi with arranging stars to form the Matariki constellation, programming microbits to traverse the stars, and executing unique actions at each star, such as displaying LED lights or playing some different music pieces. So this experience again deepened their understanding of electrical circuits, programming logic, and the use of sensors and actuators, but also connected them to the cultural significance of Matariki. And then finally, the final kind of challenge that we showed in the film there was inspired by the whakatauki that speaks of the rejuvenation through the winds of Tāwhiri Mātea and drawing from the creation narrative of Hine Ahuone. So this challenge offered a tangible exploration of our connection to Atua through the assembly of wind-powered strand-beast models. These kinetic sculptures served as symbols of ourselves and our whakapapa coming to life, with wind to embody the gift given by Tāwhiri Mātea. So that our rangatahi were able to engage with concepts such as gear ratios for mechanical advantage, kinetic energy and friction, and the rangatahi not only constructed the models that moved with the breeze, but also delved into the dynamics of motion and energy transfer. So I just wanted to end on that note. I apologize again that I was, for whatever reason, the tech collapsed, but it's really a great opportunity for me to share in terms of our mahi, why we exist, our journey forward and what that has looked like and some of the success that we've had. And furthermore, as we reach that 10-year point, some of the vision forward as we prepare very much for what is to come in that horizon of 2040 and beyond. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time. Tēnā tātou katoa.